It's almost past midnight, but he can't fall asleep. He's concerned about the families that are broken and weak. He thinks about the single mom who's trying to make ends meet. His heart breaks for the teenager who's lost and on the street. And he's fighting their battles on his knees one by one, pleading with the Father. They need help from the Holy One. I want to thank God for the man of God who does his best to lead. He's been steadfast to his calling, a friend in a time of need. He preaches the word and faithfully serves, and I'm so thankful for the man of God. Many years have gone by, but his vision still remains to watch over his people until the lost Jesus saves. He encourages the broken heart that joy will come again. He welcomes in the prodigals and those bound by sin, and the legacy he's leaving for those who come behind to live their lives for Jesus. Well, there is still time. I want to thank God for this man of God who does his best to lead. He's been steadfast to his calling, a friend in a time of need. He preaches the word and faithfully serves, and I'm so thankful
back. Here we go. Ready? Heaven came down and glory filled my soul. Thank you. Who needs the McCluskeys? What have the McCluskeys got that I ain't got? Come on. All right, let's open service in prayer. John, Alex is alive. He's alive. All right. He made it. Good. On his way back to college. Drugged up and medicined up and strapped him in. All right. All right, awesome. Well, I'm glad hopefully he's feeling better soon and everything. All right. Would you open us up in prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this day. Thank you for time in your house. Thank you for bringing us all back this evening for another lesson and some fellowship. We pray that you walk with the pastor, help him to deliver the message you want him to, and help us to be open to it and to receive it. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Let's sing 75, Rejoice in the Lord. Is this the Rejoice in the Lord? Ron Hamilton's Rejoice in the Lord? Yeah. How many of you know Rejoice in the Lord? A couple of you? All right. Half of you. If you don't, fake it till you make it. God never moves without purpose or plan when trying his servant or molding a man. Give thanks to the Lord, though your testing seems long. In darkness he giveth a song. Oh, rejoice in the Lord, he makes no mistakes. We know at the end of each path that I take. For when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. I could not see through the shadows ahead, so I looked at the cross of my Savior instead. I bowed to the will of the Master that day. Then grace came and tears fled away. Oh, rejoice in the Lord, he makes no mistakes. We know at the end of each path that I take. For when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. Now I can see testing comes from above. God strengthens his children and purges in love. My Father knows best, and I trust in his care. Through purging or fruit I will bear. Oh, rejoice in the Lord, he makes no mistakes. We know at the end of each path that I take. For when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. It's been a long time since I sang that song. It's a good song. All right, number 116. I have decided to follow Jesus. You know, I remember next time we have a baptism, remind me, I want to sing this after the baptism. I think it'd be just a verse of it. It'd be good. Ready? Here we go. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have good singing tonight. It's time for Bible trivia. Did anybody cram Esther's 1, 2, and 3? All right, hopefully you did. I see some hands there. I have 30 questions, but I don't know that we'll go. Actually, I have 35 questions. I don't know that we'll get that far, but we'll see. So, who says side versus side? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Who says guys versus girls? Literally nobody. Okay. All right. Let's do side versus side. Left versus right. Is the reverb on? Echo. There we go. All right. Side versus side. All the normal rules apply. Raise your hand. Quiz out at 5. No negative points for anything wrong. First one that Deke sees, he'll call on. Here we go. Question number 1. Who was king during the time? Ahasuerus is correct. This side strikes first tonight. All right. Complete the blanks. He reigned from blank even unto blank. Who was it? Nope. Over here this side. He reigned from blank even unto blank. Fill in the blanks. It's this side. Going 5, 4, 3. Nobody's going to take a guess. 2, 1. Over here this side. India to Ethiopia is correct. All right. Good job. Lucy, is that your first point ever? All right. Ooh. That is great. We need to give her a plaque or something. The trophy. There we go. No, that trophy's mine. All right, number 3. His kingdom was divided into how many? 127 provinces is correct. All right. In what year of his reign? What's that? The 3rd year is correct. In what year of his reign did the king make a feast to show the glory of his kingdom? It was the 3rd year. All right, here we go. Number 5. How many days did this feast? 180 is correct. How many days did this feast last? All right. Good job. Number 6. Lucy might actually quiz out. That would be amazing, right? Then she will get a plaque. All right, here we go. Number 6. What was the name of the queen? Vashti is correct. All right. Good job. All right. How many chamberlains did the king send to fetch? 7 chamberlains is correct. All right. What was the concern of the wise men when Vashti refused to come?
That their wives wouldn't respect them and obey them.
That's correct. All right. Number 9. What were the 2 empires? That is correct. Media Persia. All right. In your own words, what was Vashti's punishment for disobeying the king? Okay, I'll accept it. She was stripped of her title and could see the king no more. Banished is encompassing all that. Yes. All right. Number 11. What was the name of the capital where the palace is? Shushan is correct. That's fun to say. All right, here we go. Number 12. What was Mordecai's biological relation to Esther? cousin is correct. His uncle's daughter, so it was his cousin. All right, here we go. What tribe was Mordecai? Kristen. Benjamin is correct.
Way to go, Mom.
Hope you can sleep tonight. All right, number 14. And you guys should be on camera too, so we can replay that. You just like see her giving her an elbow. All right, number 14. What was Esther's Hebrew name? Hadassah is correct. All right, good job. Number 15. Who was the keeper of the women in the... Hegai is correct. All right. Good job. Is she out? Oh, one more? Okay. All right, here we go. Number 16. Why did Esther hide her Jewish... You can't take it back. No, you can't. What's your answer? Okay. You were supposed to be this colossal thing. Over here to this side. Yes. Mordecai charged her to. Correct, not to. Why did... Yes. All right. To not to. The words of Mater. All right, here we go. Number 17. How many months was Esther purified? I'm sorry, that's incorrect.
3?
No. Back over to this side.
Lady with the waving hand.
10 is incorrect. Back over to this side. I will repeat the question. How many months was Esther purified with oil of myrrh?
That was Kristen.
6 is correct. How often did Mordecai come to visit Esther during... Daily is correct.
Lori, you're out.
Lori's out. First one. Hit the road, Jack. How do we not have that? We need that song. All right, number 19. What year of the king's reign did Esther...
He had an itch.
Sorry, that is incorrect. Over here to this side. What year of the king's reign did Esther become queen? You can't go again, John.
John in memoriam.
Kristen, was your hand up? Maybe. Either your hand's up or it's not.
It might be wrong, but 10?
10 is incorrect. 10 is incorrect. John, you can't go twice. No.
Even with the other hand.
Anybody else from this side? Going over here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, Julia. No? Okay. All right. Correct answer is 7. Oh. Did somebody have their hand up? Oh, I didn't even... I'm sorry. No, you don't. All right, here we go. All right. What did Mordecai discover on Acts?
That 2 men were going to try to kill the king?
That's correct. A plot to kill the king. Correct. All right. Question number 21. Name one of the two conspirators.
Lucy.
Teresh is correct. Yes. It was Big Than and Teresh. Good job.
Lucy, it's not my choice. My wife tells me you're out.
Lucy is out. Lucy is quizzed out. All right. I need to get her a trophy. Number 22. What became of the conspirators?
Christine.
They were hanged. That's correct. All right. Number 23. Who was promoted by the king in chapter? Haman is correct. All right. What angered Haman so much?
Mordecai being promoted.
Nope. Over here to this side. Normally I don't do this, Jeannie, but for you I will. What angered Haman?
Because Mordecai did not adhere to, he didn't believe in what he was doing. I don't know how to say it.
That's a politician's response if I ever heard one.
He wasn't administering to what,
Come on.
I know I'm right there, but my brain ain't working.
So close. So close, yet so far. Judges, I'm getting a thumbs up. All right, we'll give her the point. Mordecai would not bow to him. Mordecai would not bow to him. Same thing. All right.
Jeannie, make the check out to DER.
For a second, I thought Jeannie was running for president. What angered Mordecai or Haman so much? Well, he didn't administer to the proper protocols of the. He didn't bow to him. All right. All right. Number 25. Here we go. Who had revealed to Haman that Mordecai was a Jew?
Esther's like, oh, the guy that kept Esther. Oh, what's his name? I think she already said it. Esther, what's his name?
I don't have a specific name for this.
Oh, the keeper of the women. Like Esther's, the guy that's like in charge of Esther.
The king's servants is what I have, so I'll give it to you. All right.
Jen, my wife says you cannot answer anymore.
You're out. All right, number 26. What did... Hey, I gave you the point. If you want to criticize it, then I'll take it back. All right, number 26. What did Haman set out to do as a result? Not yet. Over here to this side. Kill all the Jews. That's correct. Number 27. What reason did Haman give to the king to destroy the Jews?
He said that the Jews hated him and that they went against him.
Went against who? That's correct. They didn't keep the king's laws. That's correct. Number 28. How many talents of silver did Haman? 10,000 is correct. All right. Number 29. What did the king give to Haman as a sign of his? His ring is correct. What day was the command to destroy the Jews written?
The month of Adar, in the 12th day?
Nope.
John? You gotta go by what she says.
Yeah. Lori, can John speak? You have approval. The 13th day of the first month. That's correct. Although I don't know that it was called January, but still. All right. Okay. We have 5 questions left. Oof. This side needs a miracle. Here we go. Number 31. What day were the Jews supposed to be attacked? What day were the Jews supposed to be attacked?
You stupid.
I'm looking for something to throw at him. I'm not going to throw my trophy, but that did come into my mind. All right. Wrong. Over here to this side. Anybody? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over here. What month is Adar? Okay, but what number month is that? Okay, well, since I have a number month down, I'm sure that's what the Bible says. What? Folks, she's right. You did that just as...
Was it on Tuesday?
No, that remains wrong. But my daughter just showed me up. It was the 13th day of the 12th month, and the 12th month is the month of Adar on the Jewish calendar. Oh my gosh. The next question is, what was the name of the 12th month?
Anybody but Jason. Mark, it's not Tuesday.
Yeah, you would still guess Tuesday. That's not a legit question. She just gave it away. All right, here we go. 3 questions left. Wow, that's kind of pointless. Let's make them worth 2 points apiece. 3 questions left. Yeah. All right. After killing the Jews, what else was legal to do?
Everything would make them ashamed. Steal their possessions.
Take their possessions. That's correct. All right. 2 more. Here we go. Who was perplexed at the end of chapter 3? It's a tough question.
Ava?
Nope. Over here to this side.
Christine?
What? Nope. Back over to this side. Who was perplexed at the end of chapter 3? Nope. Back over here to this side. Nope. Back over this side. Nope. Who was perplexed at the end of chapter 3? Lori, you're a cheater. This is why Alex is sick. God is judging your son. God is judging you by... Alex has to suffer for your dishonesty. Anybody else from this side? Jeannie already went. Queen Esther's incorrect. Let me rephrase the question open to all. Who as a group was perplexed at the end of chapter 3? You still won't get it. Nope. Wrong! All right, 5, 4, well, Jane just went. Over here to the side, anybody? 5, 4. What's that? The city of Shushan is correct. All right. No, it should be, I think it should be, it was 15? 16 to 18. 16 to 18. 16 to 18, yeah. It was worth 2 points apiece, and it was 14, and then they answered, and it should be 16. So left to right, 16. There we go. All right, last question. How many verses? I'm sorry, all 3 is incorrect. 23 is correct. So that's tied up. All right. Now I need let's do this. Everyone's back in. No more quiz outs. Let me come up with one final question here, taken from the book of Esther. Nobody check their Bibles cheating. Otherwise, you'll be excommunicated. All right. Here we go. What did the king have to hold out in order? The scepter is correct. All right, that was a good game. Good game. I like the spirit of competition. GG's. All right. Getting into Genesis. We're starting our survey of the Bible. Now, it's 6:36. We went a little bit late with trivia, but that's all right. I want to try to get done by 7 because we're going to have a quick, short business meeting after this. And again, literally, it'll last less than 5 minutes, I promise you, unless people drag it out. But we're starting a new series, a 30,000-foot view, a summary of the book of the Bible and how it fits into God's plan. Now, I'm going to attempt to try to go through a book of the Bible every week, but I already know I'm not going to be successful with Genesis. Genesis will probably take 2 weeks, but we'll see here, all right? So, how are the books arranged. First of all, could you throw that first slide up there, David? I don't have a bunch of slides, but I'm going to try to include slides just to give us visuals and things that I think will help us. Not that one, the other one. Yeah, the hand one. So the Bible is arranged according to genre, if you're familiar with that word there. And there's an easy way to, I like this way of remembering it. You got the Pentateuch, all right, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Then you got the historical books, which are basically the narratives. They tell the story of the Old Testament: Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. And then you go to the poetical books, poetry: Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. And then you have the major prophets: Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel. And then you have the minor prophets: Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. All right, that's the Old Testament on the 5 fingers. And then where your fingers come, there's 4 spaces there. And you can remember first the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Then history, the book of Acts, which is easy. And then the epistles, which epistles just means the word letter. It's a letter from Paul or from Peter or from James. So you got Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st, 2nd Thessalonians, 1st, 2nd Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1st, 2nd Peter, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, Jude. And then the last one is prophecy, which would be Revelation. So the Bible is not arranged necessarily chronologically, but it is arranged according to genre. And that's an easy way to remember that you might not have heard, you might not know before. And so we're diving into the book of Genesis, or not diving into it, but we're just kind of skimming the surface of it and giving us an overall idea of it, all right? The meaning of the name Genesis means beginnings. And the Hebrew word for the book is Beresheth in Hebrew, but basically it means in the beginning. So where does it fit in the arrangement? Obviously, it's the first book of the Bible, the first book of the 5 books of the Pentateuch. It is the second longest book in the Bible. What do you think the longest book of the Bible is? Anybody want to guess? Patricia. Psalms would be a guess that you might guess because it has the most chapters, but it's not the longest book. All right? Genesis is the second. Psalms is not the first, so it's not even the second either. Anybody else have a guess? The book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah is the longest book by word count in the Bible. Genesis is second to that. And then, of course, the book of Psalms ranks in there somewhere. I think it's 4th or 5th, honestly. And so by word count, Genesis is the second longest. Who is the author? The book itself, Genesis itself, doesn't come out and say that Moses is the author of Genesis. And this has actually been in modern day scholarship, there's something called the documentary hypothesis, which kind of hypothesizes that the Pentateuch was written much later on. We're not going to get into that, but the truth of the matter is we know Moses wrote the book because number one, the Jews were very good at preserving their scriptures, preserving the Old Testament. They were very good at it. And it's always been commonly accepted within Judaism that Moses wrote those first 5 books, traditionally accepted. But also, not only that, that's not even the strongest argument for the authorship of Moses having written the Pentateuch and Genesis in particular. The strongest argument is that Jesus said that he did. And we see that in Matthew 9:19 and verse 8, where Jesus said that Moses wrote Genesis, okay? And so, anybody that would disagree with that would have to disagree with Jesus. Let's see here. Who is the intended audience? The intended audience is the Israelites, okay, obviously. But think about Moses writing this book. Now, Moses, we're not exactly sure when he wrote it, but more than likely it was written towards the end of the Israelite captivity in Egypt, when they're still slaves in Egypt, but they're getting ready to exit out. Right before they exit out of Egypt, this is probably when Genesis is written. So you got to think about this. Remember when Moses stood in front of the burning bush in Exodus. We'll find out that story later, but I'm sure you've heard of it. So he's standing in front of the burning bush, and he says to God, well, who should I say sent me? Because Israel doesn't know who you are. And remember, you had all the patriarchs that had already lived by this time, by the time of Moses, but that was ancient history, and now Israel has been enslaved for 400 years, and their knowledge of God had passed away many generations ago. They didn't even really know who the God of their nation was, or if there even was, a God. And so Moses wrote the book of Genesis, and this answers a lot of questions for the Israelites, all right, if you think about it. It tells, first of all, it gives them the idea of who the true God is and their value based on being made in his image, all right? So we learn that from Genesis chapter 1, that man is made in the image of God. So these Israelites are like, wait a second, we don't have to worship or believe in these Egyptian gods, the sun god Ra, and all these other gods that the Egyptians had. That's all false. That's not true. We're created in the image of God, the ultimate creator. You don't know that without Genesis. And so, as in the context of what it was written in, it starts to answer questions for the Jews who are enslaved and with no hope. So, number 2, it gives them the truth about creation and where everything came from, in contrast to pagan teaching. So God exists, and now we know where the world came from. It didn't come from some, it's not on a turtle's back, on top of a pillow, on top of an elephant, or something like that, or whatever, the pagan religions taught the origin of the universe was. They know now from the book of Genesis where they came from, okay? Number 3, it gives them an understanding of why the world is broken because of sin. All right, why are we in slavery? Why does cruelty abound? Why is there death? Why is there sickness? Why is there thorns? Why do we have to work by the sweat of our brow? Genesis chapter 3 gives us that answer. And so as a slave who is previously clueless, I'm starting to learn why the world is broken, okay? And then number 4, an understanding of man's repeated failure to live God's way. Okay, Genesis chapter 4 through 11, and we'll cover this in a little bit more detail here if we get that far in a second. But man's repeated failure to live God's way. Adam and Eve failed in the garden. Cain kills his brother. The world becomes so wicked, God has to destroy it with the flood. And then after the flood, Noah gets drunk, and he fails kind of morally there. And then, the nations spread out again, but then you got the Tower of Babel. The nations fail again. And it's just failure after failure after failure after failure. And it shows how man repeatedly has failed God, right? Number 5, an understanding of their origin and heritage as a nation. So the first 11 chapters talk about the failure of mankind in general, the failure of the nations. And it kind of ends and culminates with the Tower of Babel there. And then in Genesis, at the end of Genesis chapter 11, and pretty much from chapter 12 through 50, we're focusing on one nation, Abraham and his descendants. All right? And so we see an understanding, the Jews now being a slave in Egypt understand their origin. They're finding out, wait, we about Abraham, and how they are a special people called out by this God that created the universe. And God has a special plan for them, and they're not the end game. God's end game is to save the whole world. That's the redemptive historical narrative. It's all a part of a rescue plan, and they fit into that rescue plan. And they're learning this by reading the book of Genesis. So number 6, an understanding about God's plan of redemption for all of humanity and their role in that plan. And then number 7, an anticipation that in spite of their failures,
God will keep his promises, bring them out of slavery into the promised land, and eventually bring a redeemer. And that redeemer would kind of be in the form of Moses, but Moses is just a type. He's not the ultimate redeemer. Moses will even say in Deuteronomy later, God's going to raise up a prophet like unto me. And when he says that, he's talking about a prophet that's greater than Moses. And of course, he's referring to Jesus, who is going to be the ultimate prophet, the ultimate revelation of God, and the ultimate redeemer there. Okay, so understanding the book of Genesis from the context of a Jew that's in slavery really kind of opens your eyes as to the intention of the original audience, the intended message to the original audience. And of course, obviously, the Word of God definitely, it gives us a lot of these same things, but you could see how it's just a drink of cool, clear water on a hot summer day to a Jew who is in slavery to, Pharaoh and is previously without hope. And then all of a sudden, wow, he gets all of this truth dumped on him from the book of Genesis. So all of the books of the Pentateuch fit together. Genesis is talking about a nation selected. Exodus is talking about a nation redeemed. Leviticus is talking about a nation sanctified. Numbers is talking about a nation corrected. And Deuteronomy is talking about a nation instructed. Okay? Now, what time period does the book of Genesis cover? And we could go to that next slide, David. I wanted you to see this because I'm a numbers guy, and numbers to me tell the story. So this is an entire timeline. I wish I could have reprinted this like digitally, but I have this in a book. So I took a picture of it and tried to modify it. But this is the entire timeline from creation all the way down the timeline, 40 centuries to the cross, and then down 2,000 years to where we are now. So you're looking at 6,000 years of timeline, okay? And here's the cross right here. Just, you can see it right there, okay? So from here to here is 4,000 years. Now, what I want you to see is, I know it's way too small for you to see any detail, but the point is, the green section is the amount of time that the book of Genesis covers, okay? The book of Genesis covers 2,300 years. Now, if you look at the blue section, you think, well, what's that? That's the book of Exodus? No, that's the entire rest of the Old Testament. The entire rest of the Old Testament covers about 1,400 years, okay? And this little purple swatch, I just threw that in for fun, that's the amount of years that the New Testament covers, all right? Just about 80 years. So if you look at it, when you look at the whole thing in perspective, you're like, whoa, Genesis covers a lot compared to any other book of the Bible. It blows any other book of the Bible out of the water as far as the amount of time, the timeline that it's fitting into the 50 chapters that Genesis is, all right? And so even though it's the second longest book of the Bible by word count, it really is barely kind of scratching the surface. We pick up with Genesis, and it's just God kind of catching us up to the story really quick, and then once we get to Exodus, he starts to slow down. But it's one of those things where he's like, let me summarize for you really quick here the important stuff so that you know where you came from and you get a general gist of it up until like chapter 11. Then we're going to slow down with Abraham, and we're going to start to cover the line of the Messiah. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, all the key patriarchs, the major players there. And it's not that they're great people. They were sinful men. They just had a great God. And God used them to start off, pretty much, for the most part, his redemptive plan, his rescue plan, okay? So that's what the book of Genesis is covering. Now, if you want to think about it, so based upon what chronology you study, we believe creation happened around 4,000 BC, give or take, just rough estimate, okay? So 1,000 years later, you got creation happens 4,000 BC, or 4,000 years before the cross, before Christ, all right? You got 4,000 years of Old Testament history. 1,000 years later, you got Noah. Noah's born about 1,000 years after creation, all right? Then 1,000 years after Noah, you got Abraham. Abraham is around 2000 BC. The flood is right in between, right around 1650 BC. Okay? So as you're looking at the numbers and you're thinking, wow, there's not a whole bunch of detail. There's a lot of stuff that's left unsaid. A lot of things that we don't know about, because God's plan in the Bible is not necessarily to give us an entire history of humanity. It's to establish a message of rescue and redemption. That's the point. And so we have to understand that's God's main point with doing saying what he's saying. So 4000 BC, you got creation. 2400 BC, you got the flood. 2000 BC, you got Abraham. 1500 BC, you got Moses. All right? And right here, we're starting to get into Exodus, all right, the story of Exodus. But Moses, if you can see that, he's right here. He's all the way over by 1500. And then 1000 BC, you got David. So David is he's not that far away from Christ, relatively speaking, from creation. He's only 1,000 years before Christ, okay? And then 1,000 years later, you got Christ. So if you go every 1,000 years, you got Adam, Noah, Abraham, David, Jesus. Those are 1,000-year increments, okay? And then, 2,000 years ago, we have the cross. So you got 2,000 years, and here we are now, all right? And that's kind of a quick summary of the timeline there, but just understanding, I think, the dates and when things are happening on the historical, the history, kind of helps us to get just a snapshot picture of when these books were written and the time that they cover. All right, so it's 6:54. We can start getting into the outline here. Let me try to, we're not going to finish this. Here we go. Point number 1. This chapters 1 through 11, you got the story of humanity's origin and failure. All right, if you're taking notes or whatnot. The chapters 1 through 11, the story of humanity's origin and failure. You got creation in chapters 1 and 2. You got the failure of the fall of sin in chapter 3. And then you see sin's downward spiral. It starts to spiral downward from chapters 4 through 11. In chapter 4, you got Cain and Abel. All right, of course, we know that story. Cain kills Abel. And then in chapter 5, you have the line. Instantly after that, God gives hope in chapter 5 with the line of rescue. So we see a genealogy, and all of those guys that you see in the genealogy in chapter 5, they're all good guys. They're guys of faith, all right, for the most part, or at least they're the line of faith, because it culminates at the end of chapter 5 with Noah. Noah is the rescuer of mankind, so to speak, by building the ark. He obeys God. He builds the ark. He gets in the ark by faith. He lives by, was he perfect? No, he's a sinner. Everybody besides Jesus is a sinner. But we see the line of rescue, the genealogy of rescue there in chapter 5. And then we see the flood. We see judgment come in chapters 6 through 9. And of course, Noah and his family survive that judgment. And then immediately after the flood, what does Noah do? He goes out and plants a vineyard and ends up getting drunk and he fails. So we see God's grace rescue men, and then men in return fail God. And it's like a constant cycle, okay? And so then in chapter 10 and 11, we see the table of nations and their failure. So it kind of goes through in chapter 10, it lists a bunch of nations, and then we find, again, their failure, the ultimate failure of those nations as they try to build this Tower of Babel. They're going to try to get to God themselves. They didn't term it the Tower of Babel. That's what it's called today. We're going to build this tower, and we're going to try to get to God ourselves. And man is still trying to do that today. We're still trying to get to God ourselves through our systems of religion, through our systems of rituals, through our works, through all these different things that we try to reach God with our own efforts. And so God confuses all of these men who are trying to build this tower. It's not that he was afraid that they were going to be successful, okay? The reason why he confuse them with a bunch of languages. They were all, up until this point, the entire earth was speaking the same language. They all came from Noah and his descendants, okay? And so the reason why God confounded the language in order to halt that project is not because he was afraid they were going to build a tower to reach heaven. It was that we know by modern day science that would be impossible anyway. But the reason why he confounded the language is because he knew that the longer they were engaged in this project, the faster humanity would spiral downward. And he just judged the world with the flood to clean up this mess, and now it's already starting to get bad again, okay? And so he said, we got to slow this down. We got to break these people up, all right? Because they're already starting to try to build a tower and reach me by themselves. How long until we're back to where we were before the flood? And so in an effort, I think, to put the brakes on the downward spiral of humanity, all right, he confounds languages. They can't communicate. They break up into their separate nations and cultures and start to spread out across the globe that way. And we see a disruption of this global humanity. And by the way, that's, if you look at it, that's Satan's plan. Red flags ought to go up in Christians' minds whenever you hear philosophies like, no more nations, no more borders. Let's all have a united nations. Let's have a one global empire and it'll be a utopia. That's the same spirit that they had when they're trying to build the Tower of Babel. There's nothing new under the sun, right? And so God separates them, God scatters them, and then after that failure there, now we see God's grace step back in Genesis chapter 12. God reaches down to one of these wicked heathen named Abram, all right? And he, not because Abraham deserved it at all, but he specifically chose him by his grace. And he says, Abram, I want you to come out of the nation where you're at. If you'll obey me by faith, then I'm going to make of you a great nation. I'm going to give you your own country. I'm going to engineer a nation that's set apart for me from scratch. And they'll be an example to all the nations around them. And through them, my rescue plan will start to go into action, because the Redeemer, the second person of the Godhead, will come from the line, your line, Abraham, and in you all the nations of the earth will be blessed. And so we see God starting to enact his plan of redemption all the way back in Genesis chapter 12. This is not the first time we see it. Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15, the proto-evangelium, the first prophecy of the Redeemer, we see it right after the fall of humanity. Because again, this is the pattern. You see, man screws up, God steps in with his grace. Man screws up again, God steps in with his grace, all right? And we keep seeing that pattern until Genesis chapter 12, and actually beyond Genesis chapter 12. So God steps in and tells, gives the promise to Adam in chapter 12. Oh, I'm sorry, not Adam, Abraham in chapter 12 there. And we see God dealing with Abraham primarily in Genesis chapter 12 through Genesis chapter 23, all right? It's 7:01. Let's draw a line there. I didn't think I was going to get through Genesis in one night. We'll draw a line here, and then we'll finish up Genesis in the next time. I promise you, we won't go 3 nights in Genesis. But I don't want to necessarily run through stuff. So we'll finish up Genesis in 2 weeks, because next week we don't have Sunday night service because of Community Day. All right? Let's close in prayer, and then we will go